we have such a huge population of military members here in Halifax, and of our client base, I always say, I'm like, okay, 10% of our clients are military. I don't know if that's the actual number, but just so many. And, you know, if you're not in the military yourself, I'm sure you know someone who's in the military, at least here in Halifax.
Yeah.
We've such a strong representation here, and, you know, we love our military members, and there's really so many programs that we run that are military programs. Bank of Montreal, they have their program. They're kind of like the advertiser, we'll call it. But other lenders do run military programs as well, and we're certainly in the middle of posting season. There's certainly some relocations happening. I don't know if there's as many moves this year, Todd, as there has been in the past. I think some people are reluctant to move right now, just due to the cost of housing and just trying to find a new home. Like, it's tough. Yeah. But there are some really great programs for those of you that are in the military, and we support those programs. We run them every day.
So what are you hearing from people who are moving here? Are they depends on where they're coming from. Obviously, if they're coming from Ottawa, they're probably getting deals here. But if
I think it feels like a deal, probably.
But if they're coming from Petawawa or some other smaller places like that, there's probably some sticker shock as to what they got to pay. Right?
I do think there's some sticker shock. I grew up in the Annapolis Valley, very close to the Greenwood Air Force Base, so very familiar. And I think that's what's kind of interesting about the military. Like, we have people that either come and go from Ottawa and really from across the country. It just depends. Like, if you're in the Navy, you're going here, or you're probably going to Victoria. And maybe if you're going to Victoria, you can't afford to buy a home. That's just reality. But I think a lot of people, when they are posted to Halifax, the dream of home ownership, although we may think it's slightly daunting for some people, the average house price here is still very affordable compared to the rest of the country. Like, the average house price is still around $500,000. And, you know, one borrower, it depends obviously what the income is. You know, one military borrower might be able to buy a home on their own. But oftentimes there's two applicants on a mortgage application, and we have two incomes, which, you know, we can make that work.
Yeah, for sure. How difficult is it, I guess, when it comes to what type of vehicle because you're talking about a mortgage, whether it be a fixed or variable. I would think for a military person, a variable would make more sense.
You would think, because, you know, they could be posted again. They want to break their mortgage early. You know, through their relocation program, oftentimes they will have like 3 months of their interest covered if they get posted. And I mean, a lot of employers will cover a penalty if they're relocated for work. But the nice thing is, the lenders that we work with that run the military programs, they will waive the penalty if they are posted. All they need to do is give their posting message and send that in when they request the payout statement, and that penalty is waived. So, you know, if you take a fixed or you take a variable, it is a little bit more flexible for a military member if we put it through one of these military programs.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the housing stock itself. We're out of a spring. I guess we're still kind of in the spring-summer market now, but
we're at the end of the
spring market. Yeah,
and typically the spring is the busiest market of the year.
And has that been true this year?
I'm gonna say no.
Is that right?
I don't think it was the busiest market. I think it's been steady. Again, I will say it's like 2019. And I'm okay with 2019. It wasn't gangbusters, but it's more balanced. Like, we are seeing buyers that are getting accepted offers. And I saw a young couple today buying their first home here. And I pre-approved them, I think, back in 2020. Like, it was so long ago that I originally talked to this couple. And they made 10 offers. They didn't get one accepted back then, and they just got fatigued. They just stayed on the sidelines. I refreshed their pre-approval here just very recently. And, they got an accepted offer. I always say when we do a pre-approval, people are either buying a home right away or it takes months. And, you know, they got an accepted offer. I met with them today, actually signed their mortgage documents, super happy. And they said every time they were making an offer before, they had anxiety. They were stressed. And this offer, they just feel very calm. I'm like, this is probably the right place. And sometimes, and as much as I say it's business, buying a home is sometimes an emotional purchase. I get it. Especially when we're worried about, a place to live in many cases. It's tough to people to get an accepted offer. And it's also tough for our listeners that don't own homes yet. Tough for even renters to find, a place to rent sometimes.
Yeah, and of course the ongoing discussion right across the country is affordability of houses and young people feeling as though they have concerns that they may not. I know you say that it's an obtainable dream for everybody, but some people feel as though it's a bit of a fantasy, not a dream, to get into a home because they're young. The down payment is an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah, if you're a single borrower
Right.
and you're in an entry-level type job in terms of your compensation,
even if
tough.
you're making $80,000 a year, you're out of the housing market.
You really need two incomes
Yeah.
to make it work.
Right.
That's just the reality of the situation. You need two incomes, you need to have decent credit, and you need to have some money for a down payment.
Sure.
And that's not everybody's situation, which we're cognizant of, but people's situation can change. And that's why I think a plan is so important. If you're missing one of these gaps, you can work on it. Even if the credit is like the worst credit you've ever seen in your life, there's a solution. Sometimes you just need more money down, or you need to wait out your credit and improve it. And anybody's credit can be really improved in like 5 or 6 years. So that's not the end of the world in terms of a time frame. Plus, it'll give time for people to, save some money.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen, right? Things change in a hurry.
Things change really, really quick.
Yeah.
And I sometimes find somebody's situation can be changed in 1 month. Sometimes it takes 5 years. But, I always say that there's always a solution to a mortgage situation. And that's why I think making a plan is like really important.
Okay, so the number of people that come to you for pre-approvals or do they want to have a transaction, I'm sure that you're a numbers guy. Is there what's the turnover rate for you when it comes to getting a customer in front of you to somebody approved in a home?
Like I think right now it's somewhere around 50%.
50, yeah. Is that down?
I think it is going down in the sense of we're getting a lot of people doing pre-approvals, but not as many accepted offers.
Right.
So I think it is bringing those numbers down a little bit. For me, I always think that if we start transacting with someone, if they do a transaction or not, I still think that they're a customer because either they'll come back to us when they're ready or they'll continue getting information and it may be even years down the road when they're ready to transact. Sometimes, I've been doing this 19 years. There are people that I talked to 15 years ago that we're just finally doing a transaction with. And sometimes they come to me and maybe they went with another lender for whatever reason. And they come and they say, I wish I would have went with you the first time. I would be in better financial shape, but I didn't for X, Y, or Z reason. And I always say, you know what? That's fine. Anytime that a client decides that they don't want to transact with us, I always say to them, we'd love for you to circle back with us in the future. And people's situation changes. Maybe they got different advice. Maybe their situation changed. Maybe, it's just easier for them to renew with their existing lender. And that's why I think price isn't everything. Sometimes people choose to take a higher price due to convenience. And that's not necessarily the right decision. Typically, when I say we're doing mortgage lending, it's an investment of time. Usually we tell a consumer, you're investing 5 hours of your time. But 5 hours, oftentimes, Todd, can mean $5,000.
Sure. Yeah.
I like to make $1,000 an hour. I don't currently. Don't get me wrong. I don't do it now.
Yeah.
But I would love to make $1,000 an hour. And I think sometimes it is short-sighted when a consumer is, looking at their situation. Sometimes I sometimes find like people just throw their hands up in the air, and people get frustrated. And I think the number one frustration really comes down to documentation.
Yeah.
People can't find their documentation. Sometimes that is overwhelming, but break it down. Get one document a day.
What if you don't have your taxes filed? That's a big detriment.
But
is
you
it
can
not?
get your taxes filed in a day.
You can get that done, but I'm
Go to
saying that's
H&R
something.
Block.
But that's something that you need to take care of.
Yeah, and CRA really is stepping up their collections, and I think that's one thing that consumers need to be aware of. You need to pay your taxes and you need to file your taxes. On the last show, I said you can't get it. That you can't avoid two things, and that's death and taxes. And I'll continue to say that.
So if you owe CRA, is that is?
If you're self-employed, that can be prohibitive.
It can, yeah.
It can certainly be prohibitive.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people that owe income tax, that own a home, they are coming to us sometimes to refinance to get their tax situation cleaned up.
Take care of, yeah.
CRA is a preferred creditor, so technically CRA is even in before a mortgage. So that's why you need to make sure you have your taxes paid, because CRA needs to get paid first before the bank.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess, and you've said this many, many times, open your mail. I mean, these are things we've repeated over and over, but know your situation. Go online, get your credit. There's a couple of apps. Remind people of these apps.
Borrowwell and Credit Karma.
Yeah.
Borrowwell is tied on to Equifax, and Credit Karma is tied on to TransUnion. They're free apps. Yeah, they're going to try to sell you something. You don't need to buy it, but it's free, and you can trust them. They're available on the App Store.
Yeah.
And you can monitor your credit. They'll send you alerts. They'll send you emails. if anything changes with your credit. And I think if you're going to do a big financial transaction like get a mortgage, you should know what your credit looks like. I see consumers, even today, they make an offer on the home and they don't even have a pre-approval. Then suddenly I get to see them and they have a beacon score in the 500s.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can get you a mortgage, but you need 20, 25, 35% down. You're not getting a high ratio mortgage with a beacon score below 600. It's just, it's not permitted.
Right. Yeah. So again, knowledge is power. Open the bills.
Information is power.
Information is power. That's
and
right.
hopefully we are breaking down some of these barriers.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone who's listening to our show, whether it's on Saturday or Sunday or later on, wherever you get your podcast, on Apple Music or Spotify, or you're listening to us on the City News website, or seeing some of our social media clips, hopefully you are talking to your friends and family about the things that we talk about. Sometimes people just feel alone when you're talking about finances, or you're talking about your credit, or you're talking about your assets. Have those conversations. Sometimes they're tough conversations to have even with your spouse, but it will make you stronger and better to just talk. And, I think get advice from the professionals. I hear so many clients, and I'm not going to pick on teachers, but I'm just going to use teachers as an example. We give them the advice, and sometimes then they're getting advice in the lunchroom. It's all great. I'd like to get teaching advice from a teacher, but hopefully you're getting mortgage advice from a mortgage professional. That's usually the route that you need to go. Everyone will have an opinion about what the right way to go is, but everybody's situation is different, and that's why we really ask a lot of questions. And it's not just to be nosy. I want to give people the best advice. If you've liked what you've heard and you want to learn more, feel free to visit us online at teamclinton.ca.